Hello everybody. I'm over at my dad's. Corn just got combined a couple days ago. And that brings up the subject of this video. A lot of you have asked me to do more videos with my dad. My dad, Clare, is 96 years old. And I asked him what he'd like to talk about next. And he said he'd like to talk about the old days of threshing. It's kind of fitting. We're standing in a field of freshly combined corn. So let's go in the house where it's nice and warm and get him talking. Hi everybody, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know who this guy is. It's my dad, Clare. He's been in a couple of my videos. If you don't know who he is, well, I'm going to tell you. He's 96 years old. He's been a farmer his whole life. And I've asked him to do some like interviews, some things that he'd like to talk about the old days. So today, he said he'd like to talk about how they used to thrash grain. So tell me what you can tell me, Dad.
Well, it was a good time to be in a group of guys, you know, a lot of hard work. But my dad was a thresherman for 40 years, and I could hardly wait to be old enough so that I could go with the guys.
Get in on all that hard work, huh?
Well, we didn't. Hard work wasn't nothing. We knew what hard work was going to be.
Yeah.
And I liked to work. But anyway, Dad was he made his money because we only had 80 acres of land at that time, and so he bought the company machine. He gave up his job in Lansing and came home to help his dad during the Depression, and that group of people, they had this thresh machine and tractor and stuff, and the guys that owned it, they were getting tired of trying to run it, you know, and one day they come over to my dad and wanted to know if he wanted to get into the threshing business. And he said, fellows, he said, I don't have no money. I couldn't buy nothing right now. And she said, well, one of the guys said, we didn't come here to buy. We would like for you to run this machine, and if you will do our grain when we need it, we'll work out a deal where you can own this machine. And it consisted of a Rumley oil pool 2640, and the thrash machine was a Red River Special made in Battle Creek at that time, and that's how we got started. And
well, when you got ready to do a farmer's grain, did he already have it like in shocks, already bundled up?
they were all cut with a binder and shocked, and our jobs, he hired 6 guys to pitch bundles, and the neighbors would come in if I had grain to thrash, and our job was to take these bundles and load them to the guys with the wagons, and then take them up to the machine. And it was a fun time because, I don't know, we liked to, I don't know if anybody didn't want a job at that time.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we would go to the neighbors, and probably one of the best things was the meals that the ladies put out. They all tried to outdo everybody, you know, and man, I'll tell you, you eat good. And my dad had a hired man that stayed with us quite often, and his dirty little habit was he would go into for dinner, and the first thing he would do was get a piece of pie. And then he'd eat his dinner, and then he'd go back and get another piece of pie. And he got away with that for years and years. But anyway, that's what Dad done. And then he got into the business of, I think probably we've been in every driveway Eaton County with the old Huber. That's another story. Dad passed on. My mom said, "You boys can pick something before we have to settle the estate." And Dad had just bought a brand new Ford pickup, and my brother said, I think I'll take the Ford pickup. And I said, well, I'm going to take old Huber. And that's how I got it.
Yeah. So when you'd go into a farmer's field, thresh his grain, you were responsible for the threshing machine. They already did the binding, the shocks.
Yeah.
And then there's a great big pile of straw, I'm sure. Was it somebody else would come in and bale up the straw then, or?
Well, no, that straw was valuable to the farmer, and a lot of them had a coop, I guess you'd call it, made out of poles and stuff, and we would blow that straw on top of this building because that's where the horses stayed all winter. They didn't get in the barn.
Oh, you didn't thrash out in the field. You thrashed at the farmer's place.
Well, not very often.
Okay.
Because they want that straw. We had there's stories about that. You know, how much time have we got?
Oh, I'd say unless 20 minutes would be all right. 25.
Tell them a story about my granddad. My granddad, I was with him all the time because Dad was working outside to make money, and we had sheep in the barn. And after thrashing done, my granddad had a tarp that was about 6 foot square and had a rope on each corner, and he would take that out there and lay it down, and he was mounded up with straw and carried it in the barn. Well, they had an old buck sheep, an ornery old buck sheep. And I can see what he was coming up to because Grandpa would bend over to get them ropes and get them and then carry it in. Well, just about that time, that buck sheep's
had Grandpa's a target.
Yeah, Grandpa was the target, and I tell you, he hit him right in the rear end. He just went sprawling all over the straw pile, you know, and he never said a word. He went up in the barn, he got his jacket, and he always chewed Red Man.
Chewing tobacco?
And he put a big wad in his mouth, you know, and started chewing. And when he got that cud pretty well chewed up, he said, all right, let him in. Well, he grabbed him.
The buck sheep?
The buck sheep.
Yeah.
Oh, he went to the corn crib first and got an ear of corn, and he shelled it. And I can still see Granddad sprawling all over that straw, you know, and chewing that tobacco. And he grabbed that buck sheep and he took that corn cob and he just rubbed his eyes till they were bleeding pretty much. And that buck sheep stayed out in the corner of the barnyard for quite 3 or 4
Well, didn't he spit in the eyes after he got him rubbed up?
Oh yeah, he spit him right in the eyes, both eyes, and oh God, I laughed, you know. That's and that buck sheep went out in the corner there. He couldn't see nothing, and he would just keep a shaking his head, you know, and that went on for 3 or 4 days, but yeah. That's one story about my granddad. But no, we went to about everybody in the area we thrashed for. There was 6 bundle pictures and a blower. That was my first job at 16, is run the blower. And these old guys, you know, they were pretty particular with that straw stack, because they wanted that for the rest of the year. And but I done that job for a day or a year or two, and then Dad bought me a new fork. In them days, you had a fork that was the handle was a foot longer than a regular handle, but those guys had them old wagons, them old high wheel wagons, you know, and they must be up there about 8, 10 feet.
So you needed that extra foot to get that bundle thrown up in the air a little higher.
And some of them old boys, you know, that bundle had to go up there a certain way because they would grab it with their fork and put it in a certain place. But then we would go in for dinner, and of course it was a wash tub, and everybody had to wash outdoors, and then we go on to the next job. But then we got into threshing beans, and Dad had a clover huller and a corn husker.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about that. So you've got a corn husker out in the barn. I'll go out and get a video of it and include it at the end of this video. But you guys would husk the corn, and it'd be like just like a corn picker, right? When they got done, it was just a cob with kernels on it.
Well, the fodder had to go back in the barn because that was part of the feed for the livestock, and so it had to go back in the barn. And well,
did that go from into somebody's crib at that point?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So was it the same thing where that corn sheller went to the farmers' buildings, and you brought all the corn and shocks up to the corn sheller then?
We had first we had this hired hand. His job was to take those shocks down, and sometimes he would shell out those ears and throw it in piles, and then put it back underneath the shock. And when we come home from school, our job was to get the wagon and the horse and throw that in there. And we had to put it in the crib sometimes. Mm-hmm. There's a lot, but there was a lot of steps to it, but it was a fun time, really. We look forward to it, and I don't know, you look back at those times, and it just was fun.
Yeah.
But
so you guys did the grain, you did beans, you did clover, and corn. That was the four things that you did.
Okay.
And Grandpa had 4 different threshing machines for that, or one that you could interchange for other things? How did that work?
Well, how did it work?
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm asking is, you did 4 different crops. Did you have a separate machine for each one of those?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he had all that stuff. Eventually, when he got better off, he would, because had been a small farmer at that time, that was his business, mm-hmm. along with other things he'd done. My dad had a job for us boys every month of the year.
I know how that feels. You did too.
Well,
little story about that. When I got ready to get married back in 1979, we were trying to pick a wedding date, and we wanted June. Well, that was haying time, and then it was something else was another time. And basically what it boiled down to, it didn't matter what day we picked to get married. Dad said, well, that's this harvest, that's this, you know. So what we ended up doing was October is what we picked, and Dad says, well, that's bean harvest. So we got married in October anyway, despite whether it was bean harvest or not.
Well, Dad worked all the time except deer hunting, and there's nobody going to keep him from going deer hunting. And Mom and I could hear him going in to do it, you know, and arguing about going deer hunting, and he didn't pay no attention.
Grandpa always won.
But he had 5 or 6 old boys that they went up north to St. Helen, and they went there for years. And when he come back, why then we went to the woods, and the months of December, we cut logs and hauled them home, and then the neighbors would bring in logs too, custom work. And then in January we went in the sawmill. He had a sawmill too, see, and cut the wood, the logs into boards and stuff like that. And about the 1st of February, last of February, the sugar bush coming time. So we had to tap the sugar bush, and then when the sugar bush quit running, why, it was time to plant oats.
It was always something.
So, and he always had a job for us guys.
At some point, I can remember as a kid, I mean, I was just a little guy, Grandpa had a self-propelled combine. So at some point, he changed over from a threshing machine to a combine.
We had a number 8 international combine, and he was the first guy in Eaton County to have a self-propelled combine. And then he had another one. He bought another one later on, a better one, up to date and stuff.
But he still kept the threshing machines, didn't he? Because I can remember in that one barn, he had like a Quonset hut style barn, and I can still remember the threshing machines were in there, and all the canvases and everything he'd kept.
Well, we had the elm trees died. I don't remember now when that was, but it was. But anyway, we had more elm trees. They just about all died, and everybody cut the logs and brought them in, you know, and elm is not worth much outside of making the gates and stuff like that. And my dad's, I'm getting sick and tired because when it gets dry, you can't even get a nail in it. It's so damn tough. But anyway, he sent to Michigan State to get a pamphlet how to build laminated rafters. So we built, I guess, 15, 18 barns, and some of them are still up.
Yeah, there's still a few of those buildings as I drive around. I can still. Grandpa had a unique style of how he built those barns. It wasn't just like a round. At the top, it kind of came up and went to a point.
Well, some of the other guys tried to copy it, but you don't make a round circle out of a rafter. You have to have it so that the pressure on the outside keeps it from coming apart. So
you guys would cut that elm wet so that you could bend it.
We cut it into 1x4s, and they would be a 6 in length, and then a 10, and then another one that was longer. And we would build that form sometimes right on the deck of the barn, and those rafters, and nail them, and we nail on the inside and the outside, and when you take them out, they wouldn't spring back. And I think there was 12 or 14 of them, but there's some of them still around.
Yeah.
But I've had a good life. I can't believe it didn't take long to get to 96.
I hear that a lot. Yeah.
But
yep. But I'm glad that you're here, and you show no signs of slowing down. So I think we're going to have you around for a good long time yet.
Well, I don't like living alone, but I had a beautiful young wife, and we were married for 71 years.
Yeah.
And that's what life is.
Yeah. So we've covered threshing machines, sawing, sugar bush. What else would you like to cover?
But there's so many stories I could tell, you know, and I don't know, the story isn't true, but anyway, I was sleeping one night, and the Huber was out here in the barn, and I believe that it was my dad, and he said, when are you going to
get that old Huber running again?
Yeah, when are you going to get that Huber fixed up? And that's what started me.
Yeah.
And that tractor's the same age I am.
Actually, I found out that's a 1931.
A 31.
Yeah, because I put the
Oh,
video.
there goes my story.
Yeah, I know, it happens. I put that video up on my channel, and a fellow that is very knowledgeable about Huber tractors said that it can't be a 1926 and a 3245 because they didn't make that 32. I don't remember exactly how he said that. At any rate, he said if I would get him the serial number, he could trace that down. And the tractor is a 1931, but it was built in 31, but it sat in the manufacture where they built them for a year. That was during the Depression, so they probably didn't sell that tractor for a year. And he further looked it up and found out that it was sold right over here in Hastings, which is about 30 miles away. So it left the factory, went to Hastings, and then Grandpa bought it from, I don't know, maybe it changed another hand or two, but when Grandpa bought it, it was...
I don't remember the names of the guys, but I remember going and getting it with a semi.
Yeah.
But we had, he had two runway oil pulls and 1530 and a 2040. And the 2040 went on that separator. You know, they was young guys, the doers like they used to do. They would try, you could feed that big separator on both sides if you wanted to. And I've seen my dad, the boys, you know, they would try to plug that machine up.
When you say separator, Dad, is that another word for a threshing machine?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're thrashing it, and it separates the grain from the straw.
Gotcha.
But these guys, you know, they're gonna plug that old machine, and on that Rumley, see, you burn about a third water, and the boys would start throwing on both sides. And I can see Dad going, he knew what they were.
They were trying to plug up the machine.
Yeah, they were going to plug that machine, you know, and he would slowly start walking up towards the runway and adjust that carburetor to a full kerosene. And the old black smoke would just come out of there, you know. That would go on maybe 20 minutes, and they'd had enough. They wasn't going to, it wasn't going to get her plugged.
They gave up.
Then he'd go back up and he'd put it back where it was, you know. But that was a lot of fun in threshing gangs, and
yeah.
I don't know. Everybody had a good time, you know. We were doing our jobs, and I'm glad Dad trained me like he did, and I don't know, I got a couple of great grandkids that they know what work is too. So.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think we'll call this one a video, Dad. I think we've covered it. I want to thank everybody that watches these videos, and also I like the comments that I hear, not only on the YouTube channel, but also I get comments on Facebook that they like to hear Dad talk about the old times. And so that's what I asked Dad if he was ready to do another one, and he is. So that's why we're here today. And I know that we're going to want to do another one. So Dad, what do you want to talk about on the next video?
I'd like to go out in the barn and show off my work.
I think that's a good idea, because there has been some people that have asked to see your collection.
Yeah. I had a friend that interviewed me about a year ago, no, it ain't been a year, about this threshing deal, and he wrote a book, and there's a chapter in there about that threshing days.
There's also another book out there that Dad's in. It's called Tractors in a Haystack, and it's I can't remember. It's been probably 10 or 12 years ago that the guy wrote a book. It's about a lot of different tractors, but one of the chapters in there is about Dad's John Deere BR and his John Deere his Silver King. So if you ever are in the library and you're looking for a book to read about old tractors being restored, there's a bunch of them in there. It's all kinds of makes, and he's in there in one of the chapters. So I guess, Dad, with that, we'll wrap it up. The next video, we'll get you out in the barn and talk about your old collection.
Snowing out there today. I want to be inside somewhere.
Yeah. All right, if you're still with us, thank you for watching, and until the next time, take care and God bless.